Hi guys, it's your Wednesday Ikebukuro West Gate Park episode. Today's episode was episode 4, Waltz for Baby. Before we go into the episode, I do want to say I have noticed that my reviews for Ikebukuro West Gate Park are getting a lot of downvotes. So it is coming to the painful conclusion that I may have to either try something new, so I'm going to try and do something a little different in this episode, or I will have to stop my weekly reviews and just cut Ikebukuro West Gate Park out of the schedule for this season. I'm still going to watch it. I like it. I'm really taken with the show, and I'm still going to watch it. Because I'm working on so many different videos, and had to have one of them pulling in a lot of negatives and putting in, at one point I think we hit 40% like rate on the second video. If you guys aren't enjoying the content, it makes no sense for me to continue the videos, just because obviously I'm here to learn and try and improve, and we're a growing channel, so I can't keep pushing out content which isn't really, if the content's bugging people, I'm not going to continue doing that. So Ikebukuro West Gate Park is now, its head's on the chopping block. I've got to decide what to do. I will say, if I do decide after this video, also if this video performs poorly as well, I will be cutting the releases. I won't really say anything. I will just pull it, so you won't see episode 5 released or anything. It will just cut from this. So sadly, I guess I will see what the outcome is. Which is sad, because this week's episode was such a tonal shift from what we've seen so far in the videos. It's tonal shift from what we've seen so far in the episodes. It's a really nice video, and I have actually got a bit more of a breakdown this week, so I've managed to actually break down scenes and stuff. So I will go through this episode, and it's all going to come down to how the video performs like for like. If we end up in 30s, like 30% again, it's a sign that I should go work on the videos that are pulling in the likes, which I'm doing well on, and focus on those instead of actually focusing on something that just isn't hitting the mark. So let's talk about this episode, because it was such a tonal shift of an episode, and it's a heavy topic, but it's also beautifully told story, where we are going to open, and it's quite a bit of a contrast. Straight away I noticed something was different. I noticed it was very different from all the other episodes we've seen so far, where our colours are muted. We come straight in and the colours are muted. It's snowing, so the sky is grey and dull. There's no bright colours anymore. Like, we can see the reds and the greens of the traffic lights, and we see Makoto's hoodie is a very dulled out colour. Today's topic is introduced to us quite heavily, but it's also quite a contrast, because we hear Christmas music, and the first thing which stood out, because we hear bells and we see the snow, I was like, oh, is this the Christmas episode? Yes and no. So it is a Christmas episode, but it's not a Christmas episode in typical anime sense, where the characters do fun things and it's a fun, happy episode. It's a very heavy episode indeed, where we open with somebody laying flowers down, and Makoto sees the flowers, and somebody has lost their life to a murder. Makoto's lines contrast the Christmas music, so we've got this happy Christmas music whilst Makoto's asking a very heavy question. What would you do if the person who had died was irreplaceable to you? And that cuts to our opening credits. It's a very different impact of an open, and it really does impact you in the gut. Today's episode, there's no laughs, there's no jokes. It's, to be fair as well, what I'll quickly tie into the end credits also being completely different. We don't see King either. So we hear King, we get a call from King, but we don't see King this episode. We see Makoto on his own handling this situation. We see him also calling on his friend from the police from the first episode. That's it. We literally get to follow Makoto this episode, and we get to learn, as much as we follow this sad story about this grandpa trying to get justice for his dead son, we learn a lot about Makoto as well, which almost seems to be the proper underlying message of this episode, is about Makoto. So we've got, again, the colours being completely greyed out. The colours are just muted, and we see a man laying flowers, because it's a very sad episode, and The colours are muted maybe for this man who, ever since his son has died, we know that he's tried again and again to try and get some information on what happened, but he hasn't got anywhere. So for him, he can't rest. He's not getting peace. He hasn't got closure. And he's laying these flowers and everything around him is just muted. There's no colour in that life anymore. Where Makoto is then approached by this man, where he asks, were you around at the time? What were you doing? Do you come here often? Where Makoto buys the guy a drink. And we find out that the guy's son had died. So it's his only son, and his name was Toshi. But Toshi was sadly a man who had a bit of a reputation, and he was a leader of a gang. Makoto then gives us some information. Well, to be fair, as much as there is this very sad story, I want to focus on the Makoto stuff because Makoto is our main character, and it's very important to focus in on the information we're getting here, where we find out that Makoto's dad is also dead. He even said if he was alive, he would be your age, where I think we can understand why Makoto actually takes on this case in a sense where he maybe does see this man as a bit of dad who never was, or he does see that he sees his dad in him or something. What he would perhaps see what his dad might have been if he was alive, where the man is blaming himself. We find out that he raised Toshi on his own. Toshi had died 5 years ago, so it's a cold case, essentially, where we don't have any information and he's not had any closure, where he asks Makoto, do you know any gang members? Is it possible you can get some information? Makoto, being maybe with the fact that he sees his dad in him, he says, sure, my situation's kind of the same, so he agrees to go and try and do this. Where the scene is cut short by him meeting his grandson. Sad times. He meets his grandson, and his grandson's all like, I love fruit, which gives us a nice little link to Makoto, telling him, I work on a fruit stall. That's great. I'll get you some fruit. The family members, so we also see his mother, who is Harumi, and her son's name is Akihiro, who is the supposed grandson for this man. And they thank him for listening to the grandfather. And we do get a quick bit of information where she freaks out where she sees another woman, and it kind of leads us on a bit of a grey herring, because initially I think this even leads Makoto down a path where he thinks initially this might be something that she's hiding, which is true, but it's a bit of a red herring where it takes us down the wrong route. We find out that she's no longer part of a gang anymore either. It is near Christmas, so we do get a double down on the fact that it is near Christmas. Makoto gets offered a lift from Gramps, calling him Gramps because this feels quite nice. And we find out he's a taxi driver. And we just get some really nice Boca night scenes of Ikebukuro. It's a really nice montage of just seeing these night scenes of the place and him driving. He chooses the music, The Night Train, which he is complimented on having good taste. And I'm wondering here if it's the fact that maybe his dad liked this song, because it doesn't seem like the kind of song that a youngster would pick naturally on their own without having parental influence. So I do wonder if the choice was made with his dad in mind, where the next day we've got Makoto sitting on a fruit stall listening to the same song. Makoto I love him, and I think he is my favourite character. He's very, like the colours as well, he's very muted this episode. He's not his happy bouncy self. This is a very heavy topic, and it's probably hitting him as well. We don't really get any info on his dad and what happened. We just know he's dead. Maybe it wasn't the best thing either, and maybe he's seeing similarities in the cases. The only time we hear King now, where we get a call from King, where King has pulled up no information on the murders of 5 years ago, but he does say I found some information on the team in Ueno. Ueno was the area where Toshi had his gang. This is Team Apollo. This is the team that he put together, and apparently they're already on their third leader, so they've gone for three leaders this time. Obviously, they lost their first leader. So Makoto decides to go and scout the area out, and he heads to a bar. I think he knows what he's doing. He's kind of winding these members up because he sees these members on a table where he starts to go, I'm writing an article on fashion. Can you tell me anything about the late Toshi? But I don't quite understand what he's got to do with fashion. It's a bit of an odd link. He could have just said maybe just lifestyles or something, but he chooses fashion. And he gets that cold response from the barman who stares him down, where he continues and goes, oh, I know his old man Yashiro. It finally triggers the Team Apollo members to come over and threaten him. Their gang thing is the hats with the spiders on them. He says, don't go digging up the past. We're not going to tell you anything. We get a quick sequence of seeing Makoto asking around, getting information from vendors and residents. He ends up surrounded by Team Apollo, and they tell him, you've been banned from the town. And we see Makoto actually fighting this time. He's not the same level as King, and he does get overpowered and he loses quite badly, where they tell him, if we see you again, the same thing's just going to happen. The next day, Yashiro comes to visit Makoto, and he's now sporting a new black eye, where his mum's even like, it's okay, it happens all the time, giving us some information there about what she's had to deal with. He's tough, he can take it, don't worry. Where Makoto tells him that they're hiding something. He's going to go and meet with them again. Just quickly going back to probably the bit which stood out the most was his mum, the way she handled it. We know that his dad's dead, so she's had to raise Makoto herself, which is probably some more similarities between Makoto and Gramps' story. We're getting some very indirect information on Makoto right now. He meets up again with Team Apollo. He says this time, I'm not alone, his old man is outside. There is a nice Route 66 sign behind the gang member. I just thought it was quite nice to see that, Route 66 being the highway to hell, sometimes referred to. The guy says, you look awful, your face looks awful, and Makoto makes a little joke just saying, it's true, isn't it? Some people do some really bad things. And eventually the guy agrees to contact Rintaro, the leader, the current third leader. And this is where we get all of the kind of lowdown. So all the story kind of starts to fall into place, where Makoto meets Rintaro, who really does look like Bakugo from My Hero Academia, which is iconic as King is Shigarashi. Rintaro says, what have you heard from Toshi's dad? Makoto reels off the basic information that he's a kind-hearted boy, but obviously he was raised on his own, so he might have been a bit troubled. Where Rintaro says that's true, but it's also not, where it's only limited to his favourite members, where he was prone to snapping and he was quite unpredictable. Nobody knew what would happen when he would snap. But he was kind at the same time. He brought flowers to his sister who was in hospital. Makoto, not quite getting where we're going quite yet, he says, isn't everybody like that? In the sense that we are nice to the people we like. So we're all kind of the same, where you will treat the people you like nicer than the people you don't. But then Rintaro asks that one damning question, which adds more colour to the scene, where we start to understand the story a bit more. You don't hit women. Where we find out that Toshi was he had a bit of a temper to him and he would hit women. He was with Harumi at the time. If the incident had not have happened, Team Apollo would eventually have fallen apart because of how he was. So he tells Makoto that you need to be careful with what you tell his old man. We don't need to go hurting his dead son, which is, I think, it's the moral dilemma of the entire episode. So we start to find out more and more, and we also get to see Makoto making that tough decision as well. We are learning that Toshi isn't a very nice character. Would you tell him the truth? Makoto and Yashiro talk afterwards. Yashiro tells him not to make his mother cry. Makoto gives a little bit of information where he's like, she's the one who makes me cry. A little bit more information on the family dynamics going on there. We see him go and head out to play with Akihito. I think his name's Akihito. Makoto starts to talk to Harumi, and he asks if Akihito is actually Koji's son, is actually not the son of Toshi. He's right. I'm not quite sure what maybe gave it away, but Makoto figured out that the boy isn't actually Toshi's son, so that also means Yashihiro isn't the grandfather. And we get information now where she says, yeah, he would hit me, and we find out that Koji stood up for her. So Koji was the number 2 of the gang, and he would always stand up. Due to Toshi's really poor handling of her in a relationship, he ended up pushing her away to Koji in the end, pushing her to a more decent man, where she ended up meeting more and more with Koji. Harumi asks Makoto, are you going to tell Gramps? Where Makoto's like, no, I'm going to keep it from him. Because we don't exactly need to ruin his image of his dead son. So he doesn't actually need to know. I think I as well, even though I can see where the moral issue comes in, is I personally, if I knew what Makoto did, I also wouldn't feel comfortable telling Grandpa the truth. Even though, yes, he's unable to rest and he needs closure, it's also quite tough to tell somebody that the person you hold dear wasn't quite the nice character you think they were. So I don't know if I'd be able to tell him either. Makoto asks her, are you still hiding anything? Because he recalls the issue where she saw that woman. She kind of snaps out at him and is, you wouldn't understand. This is actually my life. This, there's no deadlines here. This is my life. There's no ending. There's no story. And she says, on the same day that Toshi died, I told him I wanted to break up with him. I wanted to end it. And I loved somebody else, where he lost his temper. And she was obviously protecting her unborn child. And he figured things out. She told him it wasn't his child. And then he ran out. She followed the guy and found him dead down some staircases. She even says, I felt relieved and shocked at the same time. I was relieved because he wouldn't kill Koji. Would you really want to tell the grandfather this story? We then see the girl from before. So this is where the red herring kind of turns into that red herring, where the girl from before isn't really why she was freaking out. She obviously saw the girl from before. Actually, she does seem to be quite friendly with her. Makoto then asks in front of everybody, you saw him laying in the snow, but you didn't see something else. He starts to work out that she must be hiding something. You were the first on the scene kind of thing. You must have seen something. Where Harumi's like, it's been 5 years, I've forgotten. And she says, you've done enough. And then that's where that kind of cuts. Right, Makoto finally realizing that information's missing, and he's starting to put things together, where he calls the police. He has obviously got his contact within the police. And he says, can you check up on an old case for me? I want to know about Harumi's testimony. We learn that she was the first on the scene and she saw a young couple fleeing the scene. And that's really all the details we get. I am quite impressed that the guy is able to get the details on this case really quick, because he doesn't actually give any details. Obviously, it probably isn't this easy to get hold of somebody's files, even if you are working in the police. I can imagine you need a bit more information, like names, because he doesn't actually give her any names. Makoto then asks, did they detain anybody? But then he hangs up because he's figured it out. And this is where it all clicks. He doesn't want to know if anyone's been detained because he knows that nobody was. We get a call to Harumi to let her know that we're meeting up with Grandpa now. She says, what are you going to tell him? Makoto says, I'm going to tell him a plausible story. So Makoto as well, struggling with the moral dilemma here, has decided that he doesn't want to tell the truth. And to be fair to him, he doesn't. He does stick to his guns. And when the two meet up, he says, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to find anything. I've just got a smashed up face to prove. Grandpa's even like, it's okay. You've done your best and I've heard some bad rumours. Then we are interrupted by Harumi, who has found these two couples to come forward. Makoto decides on this moral dilemma to not say anything. I don't know. It's a very heavy episode. Makoto's neither right nor wrong, I think. I think I can see the justification. I would have found it very difficult to tell the truth in this situation here. The young couple come forward and they reveal that it's the woman who pushed Toshi down the stairs, and she is there pregnant in front of them. This is it. Harumi comes forward to tell the truth, tell him everything. She tells him the whole situation about him being abusive, where it's a really sad moment. And the saddest moment is seeing Gramps actually reacting to learning the truth. And he starts to apologise for his idiotic son. And as he starts to walk, he goes, wait, is Akihito still Toshi's son? This is what kind of breaks him, where he learns the truth. It's a very emotional moment. He says, Akihiro was never my grandson. And it's a really sad moment. The colours are still muted. The entire episode's very muted because it's a very serious episode that's not supposed to be bright and colourful. Couple tell us everything. They were on the way home from a date where he bumps into a very angry Toshi, where he just full on punches the guy. He starts pushing her as well. He's very abusive. She pushes him in out of self-defense, where he falls down the stairs, and then it's an unintentional kill. If she had handed herself in, it wouldn't have been a murder case. I think it would have just ended up as, I think it's manslaughter. It's unintentional. It's not a premeditated. Then again, I don't know the Japanese judicial system. It's very different, I think, to over here, where I think we've got two different levels. And to be over here, to be one or the other, it's all dependent on if something was premeditated. Not quite sure if it's the same over there. And she even says, I wanted to turn myself in, but then we got married and we wanted to apologise to you. You need to give us another month because the baby's due in a month, and then we will hand ourselves in. Because I can imagine it's been absolute hell for these people as well, where imagine going out with somebody you love, having a great day, and then this guy starts to fight with you, and then to protect yourself, you push a guy, not knowing and foreseeing that he's just died. He fell down the stairs. He obviously hit his head in a very bad manner, lost a lot of blood. And learning that you've killed somebody unintentionally as you've tried to protect yourself. This must have been very hard on her, and it's probably played on her mind again and again all through 5 years. Grandpa is crying, and we can see him crying into snow, and he says, I can't have the mother behind bars, where he's apologizing. He says, apologizing to Toshi. He blames himself. He says, I'm sorry that I failed to raise you. I failed to get you revenge, and I'm going to apologize to you in heaven one day. Sit tight and calm down. And that's it. That is a very emotional wrap up with him getting his clearance, of him getting his closure. He now knows the truth. And he himself has made that decision to allow this young couple another chance at a life together without having to worry about going to jail. And they've also got it off their chest. They've apologized. Makoto is driven home, and we get a very poignant line where, if I was your son, I'd be proud of you. And it's a very emotional episode, and the episode knows that. We don't get that initial end credit song that I don't actually like, and I've always said a few times I'm not keen on it. We get a different ending, and it's by Innocent Infernal. It's a really sad, but it still fits the feel of Ikebukuro. I prefer it. I really can't tell you how much I really like the CD. Even the ending is different. So initially, the ending, we follow both of them. We follow Makoto and King. This time it's different. We see Makoto sitting in front of the same water feature, and he's sad, he's crying. Everything's around him is raining. It's the same routine with him, but we don't get the King scenes. We just see him walking, and it's raining, and all these scenes are just in the rain. It's a lot slower because the song is slower in general. And at the end, we see Makoto in the rain, and he's facing a very wet King. King is there, standing under the heart tattoo again, and he's in the rain as well. It's just a very emotional section where it almost looks like Makoto's going to walk on past. And I got to quickly a little highlight for the episode for me was seeing King wet. It looked good, guys. You're going to have to give me that. It looked really good. And that is our emotional episode. It's been a very emotional episode. It's been a very different episode from what we've seen so far. It's a very tonal shift what we've actually had from the story. I think it was handled in a very nice way, and the editing and the scene layout, the composition of the entire episode was great. The fact that I knew something immediately was wrong when we opened on these very muted colours. Makoto's lines were very contrasty to the Christmas music playing in the background. It's a very heavy episode, but it's also been told in such a way that it's been handled great. I think it's been done really well. Despite the heavy topics, I think it's been a very good episode, and I've really enjoyed the episode. And I have enjoyed breaking down the anime as a whole. I've really enjoyed watching it. I think it is a favourite of mine. It's not the favourite of the season, but I have really enjoyed this anime. If this is the last video I do for you guys, I'm not going to continue. Sorry there if I'm upsetting people. If this is the last review, I guess I'll go out on a nice high note of an episode of how beautiful this actual episode is. It's a very beautiful episode. It's been handled really well by the creative team on board with this actual anime. It's a really good episode, and I'm going to continue watching regardless, but whether I'll be talking to you guys about it, giving my opinions. What I might do is actually just do a shout out on the channel if I do drop it. So if you are following this anime release with me and you are waiting for my weekly reviews on it, you're gonna have to do the upvote thing and subscribe, because otherwise you're just never gonna see another episode released from me if it does get cut. I'm just not happy having videos that are underperforming on the site. So if stuff's getting like big negatives at like 30% at one point, I need confidence right now. The channel's quite small, so seeing that, it's just a sign either I have to drop it, do something different, or just end it and just focus on what's working. It is going to be down to you guys now, so if you guys are enjoying it, I need you guys to be a bit more reactive, because the negatives are definitely louder right now. So the people who have got negatives, who are putting the downvotes on this, definitely something not working right here. So thank you again for tuning in, guys. The schedule, as always, is Sunday to Monday is Moriarty. Join in for some detective work. Moriarty and Golden Kamuy definitely being my top reviews of the season, and people are definitely jumping on board, getting so many comments. So those are the ones which are not going anywhere. They're definitely working. Monday is your Golden Kamuy release. Fun. It's the season 3, so you come and join us if you have been watching it, or if you suddenly just found out there is a season 3. There is indeed a season 3. So if you have watched the first 2, the 3rd season is airing. Wednesday morning, if this video doesn't get completely smashed by the downvotes, Ikebukuro West Gate Park should be coming out in the morning. If not, I will put a shout out on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed to hear the fate of this one. Noblesse comes out Wednesday, Thursday morning. Friday is Journey of Elena. That is my schedule. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you are enjoying content, just so you can follow other stuff as well if I do disappear on this one. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.